Hey, it's United in Green podcast. Listen, I finally got this audio fixed for the intro music. I think it worked out pretty good fade out there. So we got it worked out, which is great. No cold open this week. We fixed most of our audio issues now. I think that Sam has his AC on in the background. We can't hear it, so I think we're all good. Um, and I think we have some stuff to talk about. How you doing today, Sam?
Doing good, doing good. Yeah, hot one down here in Massachusetts. Like you said though, a lot to talk about. I mean, I don't even know if we'll get to it, but we have a goalkeeping coach headed to Germany. Crazy things happening with Vermont Green.
Insane things. We had a crazy draw. We had a bounce back win. We had a women's match last night. Um, all kinds of fun stuff happening. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. You know what? I'm drinking this seltzer that I found. It's called Happy Dad.
Ooh, that is a well known brand.
Oh, I didn't really know that. I saw it on one of the Instagram creators that I follow, and I'm assuming that I'm seeing it all over the place now, and all these different creators are drinking it, and I'm wondering if they do some podcast and Instagram sponsorships, but
I mean, I've been telling you, Mike. I know I've been talking with Tom Pinzone, who hosts the Blazing Musket podcast. Zero Gravity, we are here and willing and able. We do not need any money in part of it. If you just send me and Tom a case, we'll be fine. That's a one-time deal, and you will essentially have a lifetime worth of a sponsorship. So feel free to hit our lines. I don't know if it'll be the same deal for Mike, but definitely, I think whether it be Happy Dad or Zero Gravity, we can make some deals work.
I think you're right. I think you're right. So yeah, let's jump right into this. Tom Proctor and myself did a quick post match instant reaction. We had Amoni Thomas on. We were hoping to have Amoni on in a bit um, nicer situation. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. That game was wild from start to finish. Um, Now, talk me through um, what you know of Bolts and um, how you expected them to set up. And did you think that they were going to play kind of a mostly defensive game, or did you think they were going to come out on the attack? Because at
I
that
mean,
point, like in that their status in the table, they really had nothing to lose.
yeah, that is a good point. I think when it comes to teams going up against Vermont, I would say even more at home probably. There is the sense of Vermont's going to give you everything you have. Probably makes sense to stand back. But Bolts have been able to put up some decent results. Again, they are thirded down the table, but they tied a team like Seacoast. They were finally able to get into the win column. So I really do think maybe compared to some prior years, there's a little bit better quality there. But still, going up against a team like Vermont, it seems like the idea is that you're going to sit back, go on the counter, and then if you're able to spring on the counter, maybe they'll get that goal. But obviously, there was kind of the inflection point of a red card given to Enrique. So that obviously played a major role. But kind of overall, it does kind of suck to lose points to Boston Bolts, even down a man. When you look at it's going to be a battle, I think. Western Mass Pioneers versus Vermont. Vermont obviously still, I believe, at the top of the table currently. Um, but points are going to be at a premium at some point, so that could be one you look back on. But yeah, definitely didn't expect a team like Boston to really, be able to get any offense going against Vermont. Even if it was down to man. So kudos to them for at least getting a draw out of that match. I guarantee you they'll probably be feeling good about it.
Yeah, I definitely think they're feeling good about it. I mean, they needed to win and crawl out of that basement. I suspect that Bolts is probably a better team than the results will show. The early results will show. I mean, Same with a team like Sea Goats. You know, it's just gonna be it's just gonna be some time for them to get out and get rolling. And we've seen a few of these teams who had some early struggles eh, get out and now they're kind of rolling. So like I think these next few games for Vermont are going to be very pivotal. Um, but talking about this game, you know, having been there in the stands, I really felt as though this referee, and we'll get into that in a second, because typically on this podcast we don't get after the referees in USL 2 too much. This referee came into the game looking to put his mark on the game.
Mm.
Um, and he did from the beginning. He was calling it very, very tight. There were 32 fouls in the game at the end of the game. 32 fouls at the end of the game. And this guy was looking to pull out that card, looking to, you know, to control the game. Unfortunately, he didn't really control the game. The game was chippy. The game was physical. The referee was throwing out fouls in places he shouldn't have been throwing them out, not calling them in other places. Um, and then on the Njike red card, that was probably, and I've looked at a couple of different angles on that. You see the TV angle, and then I got to see some angles from some of the cameramen, and it doesn't look exactly like it's a foul at all, or a red card at all. Most likely a yellow card. It was one of those balls where it's kind of a 50-50 ball. The ball's being bounced around inside the box. It gets kicked out, and Njike kind of brings his leg up to control the ball at the same time that the Boston attacker is throwing his head into the play, right? So, and one angle looks like he didn't catch him, the other angle did. And whether he did or not, I think it was incidental. I don't think it's a red card. They called the red card for serious foul play on a high boot, and it just wasn't. I feel like the header came in a bit late. But the fact of the matter is, in the end, and I've talked to a couple refereeing friends. Um, this gentleman refereeing was being evaluated that night.
Interesting.
So not that that really should mean anything, but I feel like this probably wasn't the proper game for him to be evaluated, and I think that's likely the reason that he called the game the way he did. And it, and from what I've heard, they weren't too impressed. Um, so I would like to um, apologize to the fans out there for getting a raw deal.
Yeah,
um,
and it's tough. You know, obviously, you never want to be like, no one likes when the official is either the center of attention, or when, you know, a team maybe loses a game and you know, they kind of go after the official. But it's funny, you know, Raising Anchor, you know, they put out a little clip. They had a player sent off, and you know, they were talking about USL Championship refs being the worst refs ever. And I'm like, guys, you have no idea what USL League Two is like. So uh,
it's like Mad Max down here.
yeah, and it's like, you know, obviously, I think you can appreciate if, you know, obvious, you know, USL League Two games, they're definitely not called as tight. So, but you know, if a game's called tight and it's being called consistently tight, you can at least appreciate it then. But if you're still not able to maintain control of the match, you know, you're having a trippy match that's, you know, kind of teetering on the border. That's when, you know, things can kind of boil over. And you know, definitely is interesting. You know, like I said, you know, definitely have heard from people there that didn't necessarily look like, you know, a red card offense. And you know, it
Yeah,
really sucks for that to now have an impact on the game. And you know, like you said, referees should never have the aim or goal of making themselves, you know, the story of the game. I'm pretty sure a lot of them would prefer if they had no idea who the head official was, and that, you know, they just call the match and they were focused on the play. So when you do have a match like that, it's definitely very disappointing. And like you said, for a team like Vermont, this could be crucial. It's obviously always going to be a tight game. So definitely was not great to see, but also, kudos. They were able to at least, make sure that Vermont got at least a point over there. So kudos to them for kind of holding strong, not losing their heads completely. But again, it'll be interesting to see if a point like that does come back to potentially bite the team in the future.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see, we'll see. I mean, uh, and this is not to discount the play on the field too, because um, up to that point, Vermont was very, very in control of the game. You saw a lot of a lot of possession. You saw a lot of defensive stoutness. Like you said, they did get out. Boston did get out and break on the counter a lot. Their passes were crisp. They were a very well organized team. And I think if we hadn't had the red card situation, and a later free kick that led to a goal to tie the game. Excuse me, to tie the game. I think we would have been talking about Nick Hersig, um, basically standing on his head. This, I understand he's a big dude and he can cover a lot of ground. His distribution all night was good. All night was good, despite what I had said about him before. It was a really, really fun game to watch, nail biting game to watch, but because Vermont just couldn't seem to capitalize in the final third, there were a lot of opportunities. Amoni Thomas had almost a basically wide open shot from a little bit of distance that he could have put in. Stefan had two different chances to score. Zach did score, but like it was just one of those games that could have been a gritty 1-0 win uh, off the back of an amazing goalkeeping performance. Unfortunately, we're sitting here talking about a referee and a nice set piece by Boston Bolts.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Zenge able to get a goal. Definitely on the last pod was talking about the impact he was able to make, and he's just continuing to do that. And I think you've really been able to see him come into his own. He's constantly, imprinting himself on games, and whether it be this game or the most recent game that we'll get to shortly. He's been able to make an impact. He's been able to consistently play well. For a captain, for a guy with experience playing for the green, it's exactly what you want. So definitely, it's interesting to see how a guy like Zach Zenge would perform this season if he would kind of maybe blend into the fold and you see other guys, maybe perform potentially at a higher level. But I again think, whether it be his leadership or just his skills on the field, he's been a top player so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, and Zach, and we've talked about it a lot. He's got a great personality out there. He's excitable. He's fun to watch. He's fast. He's exhibiting all of the stuff that we saw out of him in his first season. Right? You know, uh, Last season maybe took a little bit of a dip. But sometimes it happens in sophomore campaigns, right?
Mhm.
And this year I think his maturity is really shown through. His leadership skills have shown through. I spoke with him last night at the women's match, which we'll get into in a minute here, but he's just having the best time that he's had yet at the club, and you love to see that. You love to see the guy, in the pre-match lineup announcement, looking up into the crowd and patting the patch on his chest. Like those are the types of things that you want to see out of a club, especially USL2 club who has a lot of turnover, and you don't expect to see these guys back, a lot of these guys back, and talking about the club in a certain type of way. Um, and you really got to respect him for that. Let's just get off of this match because um, we did have a match a couple days later that on Tuesday in Nashua, New Hampshire. So the green playing away game in Nashua against BlackRock, um, and for what it's worth here, like Vermont seems to be running up against third place teams a lot here, uh, and they're going to continue to, I believe. Uh, BlackRock was another one of those teams that is like, I think at the time they were three. They hadn't lost, had they?
I don't think
3-1
so,
and
but they
0.
definitely, just from what I've seen, they've definitely, I think, been performing at a higher level than we might have been used to.
Yeah, for sure. And they're averaging almost 2 goals a game. And they came in and you know gave Vermont all they could give them. And I mean, it sounded like they had a good contingent of some of the youth players that got some free tickets. They got to go to the game. Some parents and stuff. Um, so Vermont comes away with a 2-0 win in this, but um, the big piece of this for me is that we had some more squad rotation. I think that Chris Taylor picked the squad well this game, um, and we got to see some performances out of some players and other people scoring besides Stefan or Njike, or I mean or Zach Zenge. Um, which is great because you don't want a whole team where there's like one or two guys scoring because you're not going to necessarily be um, successful that way. So we got to see just before halftime, about 10 minutes before halftime, Marcel Papp puts one in on a nice ball from Zach Zenge.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, scoring in the first half, getting that off your chest, getting out there in an away match is always super important. Um, Another one of those games where it never really seemed in doubt. They had possession most of the night. Um, Zenge was like Zenge was so creative. He was in and out of lanes. He was finding space. He was um, dropping back deep and receiving balls and bringing it through the midfield. They controlled the absolutely controlled the midfield, which allowed them to play fast and hard on the wings and the wing backs pushing up. Um, we got to see a center back pairing of Musa and Vic out there, and it looked right. It looked right. It looks as right as like Rui and Vic, or Rui and Musa, but like this center back pairing just looked right. It felt right the whole game. Um, I don't feel like BlackRock really had an opportunity to score all night long. Um, Maybe one or two shots, but for me, like the game was just a dominant possession coming off of a hard draw. I think they wanted to come out and show people that they were for real, and that was just kind of a fluky game against Boston.
Yeah, and what really impressed me is, well, first off, I had no idea that Ryan Zelafaro was even on the team, so that
Neither
I was.
did I. That was a nice
Yeah, so
surprise.
apparently, was doing some research and inbound transfer from Westchester United. So, what really stood out though was on that second goal, you had Hen and Pakoto kind of coming into the game, immediately making impact. I believe it was Zelenfro, fresh off the bench, was able to beat a BlackRock defender to the ball, kind of jump on the counter. You had Tyler Trimnell go down the flank, play it centrally, and ends up going to Pakoto. So like you said, good to see other guys producing. Also good to kind of see Tyler Trimnell continuing to play a key role. I believe Arnaud Tativen was back at home, so he posted an Instagram video of him watching the game. So it's nice to see Trimnell get some minutes. I believe he's also transferring, if I remember correctly. I think he's leaving Clemson and going somewhere else. I could be wrong, but I believe he is transferring. So definitely a player who has something to prove. But I've liked what I've seen from him. He's been a player. We talked about it a lot. He's not just going to do what a striker does. He's going to be able to play other guys in. He's going to want to do the dirty work. So definitely liked what you were able to see from him. Again, like that, Zenga was able to put his imprint on the game. And I think, like you mentioned too, the center backs, a guy like Victor Kuhn seems like someone who's willing to play that long ball forward, willing to have that vision up the field. So I think he can definitely pair well with a guy like Musa or, even potentially Victor and Rui. So overall, again, I think, like I titled it in my article for the Blazing Musket, a bounce back performance. Able to get the win, and I think that's obviously the most important part. Kudos to the BlackRock goalkeeper; he did make some pretty impressive saves. So, want to give him a shout out. Definitely, maybe could have been a bit more of a larger lead if it wasn't for him. But good win for Vermont, and definitely, for the men's side, building that momentum into a game that you have against Western Mass Pioneers will be crucial. Kind of get that feeling, under yourselves too. And also in the back line, kudos to Brandon Marshall, who's going to run out a little bit. But definitely, have enjoyed, what I've been able to see from him. And always good to have, pieces out there, whether it be Amoni Thomas, whether it be guys like Marshall, Costa Bile. It seems like, again, Chris Taylor and Adam Pfeiffer really picked a deep squad that can rotate when necessary, but also, if you have to go and win a game, I feel like Chris Taylor probably has a good grasp of the guys he wants to have out there.
Yeah, Marshall started that Bolts game, and you wouldn't have known. You wouldn't have known that he was a first time starter. I think he was actually very impressive out there in a spot where he could have been nervous. It was just kind of disappointing that I think that maybe we took Boston a little bit less seriously than we should have.
Yeah.
That was a point where you could have put your stamp on this league by having that big win and coming back and getting another win, and protecting that 3-point lead going into a game against Western Mass, who's going to be a tough game. But yeah, I think that having Ryan Zelafro out there now, bringing him back to Vermont, I think it's going to be a huge. He's going to be a huge piece coming into the middle and into the end of this season. This is a kid who can start. I don't know that he will start. He is another one of those guys who's super creative. He's super quick on the ball. I think that for right now in this part of his career, this part of his life, he seems to me like a guy who's going to come in, run at tired legs, and just destroy you with his quickness. Like the way he moves the ball is like a magnet on his feet. The way he moves the ball is it's almost poetic, but it's not just the way that he moves the ball, it's the speed at what he's at which he's doing it. That's what is impressive to me. And he actually did come up last night and spoke to myself and a couple of the Green Mountain boys. Said he was very glad to be back. So this getting onto the field at Virtue is going to be a big thing for him on Tuesday night, I think, because he is another one of those conquering heroes, right, from the national championship team. And we're going to be happy to have him back. It's going to be just a wild atmosphere. So yeah, that game against Albany against BlackRock was just an absolute domination from beginning to end. I never felt at all worried that Vermont was gonna lose that game. And you knew that the goals were going to come at some point. It just took a little bit longer, and I think that what Vermont has to do is just work a little more on their finishing, work a little more on being in the right place at the right time. A lot of these crosses are coming in and just finding no one. They're bouncing through the box, finding no one. And sometimes these guys are just a step behind the ball, right? I mean, there could be a lot of easy tap-ins because the balls that Stefan is putting in, the balls that Dovlo is putting in, like these are special players. In if Trimnall had just maybe a little tiny bit more speed behind him
Mm.
instead of just being kind of a big lump of a man, he's scoring 3 or 4 goals, every game. So, um, but let's get into this women's game. This was a fun match. So Flower
Mm.
City, this is Flower City 1872. I don't know what that's all about because they're a relatively new club in the USLW. Um, they currently sit fifth in their division, so they're not necessarily burning up the ranks, right? Um, this was an opportunity for Vermont to come out and show that they can play in a league like USLW, that they can recruit players to play in a league like USLW. Um, a lot of returning players, a lot of young players. I think our keeper was back. We had Neve Renwick was back,
Yeah.
um, who was all over the place. Olivia White came out and played 30 minutes, and I think she was just kind of out there to support the team, and I think maybe in the future might end up on a coaching staff if we are able to play in a league like that. Um, she's going to be an integral piece of this, and hopefully she's learning a lot from head coach Sam Mewis. Um, but there was one woman out there who was absolutely impressive. She played the number 10 for half of the game, and then the second half of the game she played all 90 minutes. Fleury, she was everywhere. The second half of the game she was out there playing right wing, um, or left wing, sorry, and like every time there was a ball intercepted in the midfield, every time there was a break, she was part of it, and it was just super, super, super impressive. Not to take anything away from the goal scorers, but um, I feel like these two games are gonna be are gonna be are they're gonna tell the tale on whether Vermont can support a women's team and a men's team, and after last year's performance against Laval, and this year's performance so far against Flower City, there's there's no doubt in my mind that we can field a women's team, a very successful women's team, as successful as the men's.
For sure. I mean, remembering being at the atmosphere for that first game last year, it was absolutely amazing. I mean, there's been some impressive atmospheres and memories created at some of those men's games. I think probably the only thing that wouldn't top the women's game experience for me would probably be that Open Cup game that Vermont won.
Yeah,
But besides that, it was truly just to see the support, to see the kind of fan fervor, to see whether it be the young girl soccer players or just the entire community kind of come together for last year it was just one night. Now you're getting 2 matches this year. I'm praying that the USLW can get some more northeastern teams to maybe make it a little more feasible for a team like Vermont to uh, go out and get a team. Obviously, if you don't have as many teams located nearby, it can be a little bit more difficult. So hopefully, whether it be Massachusetts or fellow New Hampshire, New England states, if you're able to get some more there where it makes sense for a Northeast division and for a team like Vermont to be there, I definitely would agree. I think this community can definitely have both of them and really be there to support. I mean, kudos to Sam Mewis, undefeated as a head coach. Kudos to her. But I think really getting able to see the talent that Vermont has, not only on the men's side but the women's side, it is truly spectacular. And to see the support that everyone has, for the women's game, is something to love to see. And I mean, kudos to Vermont Green. They're always good at getting special guests. They had, I believe, she plays rugby. On her
Alona
mind.
Mar.
Yeah, so they were able to bring her out. You never know. You're in Vermont. Bernie Sanders might pop out to a game. So kudos to Vermont Green. They're able to get some, truly impressive surprise guests at their matches.
Yeah, I work with Alona's mom, so
Ah,
yeah, yeah. It's well, I used to work with her mom. I think she's retired now, but
Ah,
yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing that like the level of kind of celebrity you can get around this team in this community and this town. It's kind of neat because Vermonters, we always have our celebrities. We have our Luis Guzmans and Alec Baldwin owns a house down in Manchester, and like we get those random celebrities. Jerry Seinfeld got married in Vermont. It's like we get random celebrities that come around, and it's kind of cool because like Vermont's that kind of cool place where you just kind of leave your celebrities alone and let them live their lives. But at the same time, like it's always super cool for us to see these folks in real life, and because we don't get that kind of stuff here, and I think people in Vermont are generally pretty humble, but at the same time, like I get excited. I get starstruck. I kept on looking up at the booth, wanting to go up there, but knowing that I'd probably get stomped out by Tom Proctor if I tried to walk through the booth to get a picture
oh,
with
you would
Vermont.
not, Mike. You would not. They let you in the booth. They'll let you in the booth.
um. So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think that like this is 100% the time for a women's team in Vermont. And it's just I hope that somewhere in the background the club is working on some sort of way to convince the other clubs in the USL um to field women's teams so that we can have a Northeast division.
I mean,
In the
Seacoast
pre-professional ranks, there's
United
no reason.
must have plenty of academy players that they can run out. I mean, I think we can have a nice Seaboats versus Vermont Green in the women's and men's game, and
I
I
know that,
definitely.
yeah, like Albany Rush has an academy for a women's program. I know the Boston Bolts has a women's program. I mean, it's they're able to do that. AC Connecticut already runs a team in the Metropolitan
Yeah.
Division, so it's feasible. It's just, and it would be feasible for Vermont to join one of the divisions, but the travel and the financial considerations are going to be tough. But
Yeah.
my guess is they'll figure it out.
Oh, hopefully, and again, Vermont's a very unique club in the fact that they do have their um, climate initiatives, and it's not just thinking about the financials of it. It's like when we discussed, potential moves up to League One. It's not just that. You have to think about, all right, you're traveling more. How are you gonna somehow not have a massive environmental impact compared to what you've been doing before? So, definitely, I think it might be more difficult, but the willpower that is there from the club, and I think if they had the capabilities, if there was kind of the structure to do so, they would have already jumped at it. So it's just a matter of getting the planning, getting the structure, hopefully getting some more teams located nearby, and hopefully it won't be too long before Vermont has its own USLW side.
Exactly. There is another women's game that's coming up on Saturday. So this was just kind of a warm up game for the fans. It was sold out last night. There are a lot of people on the hill, but I think Saturday is going to be the day um, where the Green Mountain Boys come with all of their drums. They come with all of their full throated cries and chants, and it's gonna be a fun time. And just I urge anybody listening, if you don't have tickets, find somebody who has tickets or an extra, and get out to this game, or just get out there and fill the hill. Um, have a good time. Bring some food, fill the hill, and enjoy yourselves because it's always a good time of virtue. It really is. Um, let's get into Western Mass. This is a game that might tell the tale for the rest of the season here because I think Vermont has an amazing opportunity to put this division in a headlock. Um, they need to come out with at least a point. I feel at the very least they cannot lose this game.
Correct.
Um, This is a home game. Um, this is a rivalry game. This is I think as much of a rivalry game uh, as Space Ghost. In my estimation. Um, I think these games are always very heated. They're always very emotional. Um, there's lots of draws. There's lots of in the history of this. We had a 0-0 draw at home last year against them. Um, we needed a win in an away day to make it into the playoffs last year. Um, and again, we've spoken about how Vermont's team last year might not have been the best team, but they got the furthest out of any
Mhm.
Vermont team yet in the playoffs. Um, but let's look at these head-to-head breakdowns, like of all these matches they've played. 2022, 1-0 win over Western Mass. 2023, Western Mass 1-0 win over Vermont. Again in 2023, Western Mass 1-0 win. 2024, 0-0 draw at Vermont. And then Vermont goes on to beat them 3-1. In the final match last year, and again we have a final match against them this year. So um, I think Vermont, still being undefeated in the league, they're coming off a bounce back game. Up until that point, they were pretty red hot. Um, I think that I think that this game is going to be a toss up, because Western Mass plays tactically to their strengths depending on the teams that they're playing. They change their tactics depending on who they're playing. They're playing Boston Bolts. Or Boston City. They're gonna go out there. They're gonna press high. They're gonna control the and dictate the play, um, and they're gonna put it on you. A team that's dangerous like Vermont, they're gonna probably sit back a little bit, play a mid-low block and try and counter on them. I mean, that's what these teams all kind of do, and in the past has kind of been a blueprint to beat Vermont. I don't think it's going to be as much this year. What I'd like to see is just a wide open match.
Mhm.
I would like to see a wide open match with a lot of scoring opportunities on both sides. Um, and I think that it's going to be a real test of Chris Taylor's his mettle, because the first thing he's got to do is pick the proper team. He's got a lot of players to pick from, so pick your strongest team. And then the second piece of it is convince the players that are on the field of the enormity of the game and that they can do it, that they can beat this team. Um, I think Chris Taylor is a man motivator, and I think he prepares very well, and I think that the players buy into what he's putting out there, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the standings, I believe, Pioneers have the edge in the sense, they're technically top of the table because they have the goals for. Obviously, they absolutely lit up Boston City. According to Google, 10 they're 10 extra goals compared to Vermont. So I definitely agree. You definitely have to at least get a draw. You also look at the result they had against Sea Goats. So I think you at least have to get a draw. If you get a loss, I think this is not a decent hit, but definitely uh, a little hit to any potential title chances. And looking at it, it's going to be a close game, I imagine. Like you said, I think Western Mass might try and sit back, not be as risky as they'd be against a Boston City or a Boston Bolts. I think it's just going to come down to who takes their chances. Like you mentioned, Vermont's had some opportunities that they've kind of let go the wayside. I think in a match like this, it could come down to one moment where you're gifted a chance, and it's whether or not you make it that can really get a result. I'm assuming you'll have Nicholas Hertzeg in net. You can rely on him to make some pretty impressive saves and maybe bail you out of some. But it really is going to come down to who's able to take advantage of the moment. Like you said, it could be an emotional one too. So who's able to kind of keep their head on, make sure you don't make any mistakes, any emotional, yellows or dare I say reds. I definitely think it probably has the potential to be one of like maybe the most heart rate increasing, but also one of the potentials to be the best match of the season just because of quality of the two sides. So it's going to be interesting to see how it comes out. I definitely think, like you mentioned, coming off that win over BlackRock should hopefully help. You have a Western Mass team who is traveling up to Vermont, definitely, and again, home field advantage. This is a match that Vermont will definitely want to be winning. Similar to the game against Sea Goats, you hope that Zenge, Musa are kind of talking not just about the importance on the table, but kind of as Western Mass being the fellow top dogs and wanting to take them down, and hopefully you see a similarly motivated side coming out against Western Mass. But I think it's going to be a close one. And it's going to come down to I don't think it'll come down to one singular moment, but a collection of moments, and whether or not whether it be a Trimnel, whether it be a Zenge, whether it be, Njike, Tativan, Dovolo, who's able to take advantage of the opportunities they're given and convert on the chances they're given. Because, if you make one error, a team like Western Mass could make you pay for it. So definitely one that fans will not want to miss. Definitely going to be a tight and close one. But like you said, hopefully we get some free flowing soccer as well.
Yeah, I mean, what I want to see versus what we're going to see, it could be completely different. Um, I, I I have this notion in my head that Chris Taylor won't do it, but I want to see it. What I want to see is that maybe run a back three with some wing backs. Put Victor Rui and Musa back there, and then you can use Amoni Thomas and on the right or on the right side to kind of push the action and play through midfield. Um, and you have options on the left side as well. Um, I'm looking to see Labordalu play, probably start this game. I'd like to see. I think this game is screaming out for a Tatavan, somebody who can run in from behind, um, and can break down players in the box. I don't necessarily know that this team needs kind of a hold up striker in this position. I think you need a quick footed striker. Um, Maybe that guy comes in at the 60-minute mark to kind of run at those tire lags, as we said. Um, I think you're also probably going to get to see a little more Ryan Zelfro. Um, and and GK is not going to be able to play, right? So for that red card. So I don't know how many games he's out for. I don't know the rule in this league.
Yeah, I think if I heard it correctly, and I remember from the earlier incident, the Boston Bolts game, that when Rayner got the red card, I'm pretty sure it would be 3 games. I would have to check how many Rayner missed. If it's 3 games, this would be a second game. Would definitely suck to lose
Yeah.
a player like in GK for more than that. But I believe at least for violent conduct, it's 3 games. So, there's the potential that he misses this game and possibly one more.
Yeah, I mean that would be a tough blow, but I mean we have players that can slot in. Zach Zenge is going to be absolutely pivotal. Um, but yeah, I think that you have a guy like Labordalu and Zach Zenge who can control the midfield. You got to have really really close, careful defending. Don't take too many risks because they will break on you and they will score on you. Um, and I think if this is going to be one of those classic Vermont versus Western Mass games, it's going to be one of those games that's going to be decided probably on an early goal. Um, and then be a defensive battle throughout. But I would like to see a more wide open game with a lot of creative passing, and we don't know what we're going to see. So it's gonna shape up to be a fun night at Virtue Field on Tuesday night. So hopefully Vermont comes out with the win. Uh, I'm gonna go ahead and say Vermont comes out 2-1 winners in this game. Um, because I do have that much faith in Chris Taylor's ability to pick a squad that can control the tempo and pull out this win.
Yeah, I'll probably go. I think it could be a really gritty game, so I think I might just give it to Vermont 1-0.
Okay.
This is a team. These are teams where I wouldn't be surprised if both find the back of the net. So 2-1 definitely makes sense, but I think this could be a real. I don't know if nail biter because, like you said, maybe Vermont just gets one early on, but it could be a very tense game.
Yeah. So before we take off here, I just want to do a little housekeeping. This is the United Green podcast. We are on all your favorite podcast platforms. Apple still messes with us, so if you need the RSS code, please go onto either of our two social media accounts. DM us. We are on Instagram as well as Blue Sky. Um, and we are supported by the Blazing Musket. Blazing Musket is the premier soccer website for New England soccer. They cover all teams from the big revs in the MLS all the way down to little old Vermont. And in between, you get some Hartford, you get some Boston Bolts, you get some um, you get some Rhode Island FC, you get some Portland Hearts of Pine if that's what you're into. Um, you get a little bit of everything, and if you can, please support their paid tier because there's a lot of great writers, and there's a lot of great content in there. We have one of them right here, Sam, who covers our very own Vermont Green, and you know, so if you can get out there and do their paid tier, but they do also have a lot of good free stuff out there too. Um, so that being said, we do have. I'm just going to get in some final thoughts here because this match we're playing against Western Mass coming up on Tuesday is the first in a string of matches over the next 15, I think 15, 17 days, where things are going to get a little dicey. You have Western Mass on Tuesday, then on Saturday you have AC Connecticut at home at 6 p.m. That match is going to bring probably Sam McCann back to Virtue Field. They started out super hot, have cooled off a bit. They're still 3-0-3 now. They have 3 losses. And then we go to Connecticut, so we have a home and home on the next Tuesday. And then we encounter NEFC, who had a rocky start as well. They've kind of gotten off the schneid a little bit and are looking kind of strong going into the midpoint of the season. And then right back down July 2nd, we're going to be right back down, not on the seacoast, playing Seaboats. That's a tough stretch of games. I think Vermont can come out of that pretty well with a win against Western Mass here. I think it's going to be very important. They come back with that win against Western Mass, and I think it's full steam ahead for this team because at that point, I think if they beat Western Mass, I think they're taking the gloves off.
Yeah, definitely agree there. And I think if this team does beat Western Mass, the top of the table is for the taking. And as much as potentially winning the entire USL League Two is impressive, I think this team would desperately love to be able to claim the top spot in the Northeast Division. So definitely going to be a good game there. Going to be absolutely crazy kind of push towards the end of the season. But also too, just again, really excited and It was just amazing to see once again Vermont come together to support the women's game. Hopefully, again, another sold out crowd. I can imagine the atmosphere will be amazing as well. So, grateful that we're able to get to see moments like that, and then hopefully too, your comeback go see the men's side play a team like for the Western Mass Pioneers, and get ready for an intense push to the end of the season.
Yeah, the game's not sold out yet, so get out on a Tuesday night. There's going to be good food. There's going to be good beer. You'll see the Green Mountain Boys with their big old 10 by 10, 15-foot tall tent out there. And come say hi to us, and introduce yourselves, and just come out and watch a nice night of football. I think it's going to be a nice night on Tuesday night. So um, get out there and support local football wherever you are. And until we see you guys next time, I want everybody to go out there, be safe, protect your mental health, and up the green.
Up the green.